Hi, Aqua Roomers. It's time for chapter reading. So, Pa has built the house and now he's putting on the canvas cover on the roof. Oh boy, is it a windy day. So if you remember, that cover was on top of the wagon when they drove all the way to Kansas, and then they first used it as a tent while Pa was building the house. Yep. Well, remember Mr. Edwards helped to build the house. Thank goodness. Ma limped through her sprained ankle. It was beginning to get well, but she soon swept the earthen floor. Then Mary and Laura began to help her carry things into the house. Pa was on top of the walls, stretching the canvas wagon top cover over the skeleton roof of saplings. The canvas billowed in the wind, Pa's beard blew wildly, and his hair stood up from his head as if it were trying to pull itself out. He held onto the canvas and he fought it. Once it jerked so hard that Laura thought he must let go or sail into the air like a bird. But he held tight to the wall with his legs and tight to the canvas with his hands. And he tied it down. There, he said, stay where you are and be... Charles, said Ma. She stood with her arms full of quilts and looked up at him reprovingly. And be good, Pa said to the canvas. Why, Caroline, what did you think I was going to say? Oh, Charles, Ma said, you scallywag. Pa came right down the corner of the house. The ends of the logs stuck out, and he used them for a ladder. Oh, let's look at this again. So do you see the corners? Sure. So to come down, he just has to go step, step, step. The ends make a ladder. He ran his hands through his hair so that it stood up even more wildly, and Ma burst out laughing. Then he hugged her, quilts and all. Then they looked at the house and Pa said, how's that for a snug house? I'll be thankful to get into it, said Ma. There was no door, and there were no windows. There was no floor except the ground, and no roof except the canvas. But that house had good stout walls, and it would stay where it was. It was not like the wagon that every morning went on to some other place. We're going to do well here, Caroline, Pa said. This is a great country. This is a country I'll be contented to stay in the rest of my life. Even when it's settled up? Ma asked. Even when it's settled up. No matter how thick and close the neighbors get, this country will never feel crowded. Look at that sky. Laura knew what he meant. She liked this place too. She liked the enormous sky and the wind and the land that you could see to the end of. Everything was so fresh and clean and big and splendid. By dinner time, the house was in order. The beds were neatly made on the floor. The wagon seat and two ends of logs were brought in for chairs. Pa's gun lay on its pegs above the doorway. Boxes and bundles were neat against the walls. It was a pleasant house. A soft light came through the canvas roof. Wind and sunshine came through the window holes, and every crack in the four walls glowed a little because the sun was overhead. Only the campfire stayed where it had been. Pa said he would build a fireplace in the house as soon as he could. He would hew out slabs to make a solid roof, too, before winter came. He would lay a puncheon floor and make beds and tables and chairs, but all that work must wait until Key had helped Mr. Edwards and had built a stable for Pet and Patty. "When that's all done," said Ma, "I want a clothesline." Pa laughed. "Yes, and I want a well to get water." After dinner, he hitched Pet and Patty to the wagon, and he hauled a tubful of water from the creek so that Ma could do the washing. "You could wash clothes in the creek," he told her. "Indian women do. If we wanted to live like Indians, we could make a hole in the roof and let the smoke out. And we'd have the fire on the floor inside the house," said Ma. "That's what Indians do." That afternoon, she washed the clothes in the tub and spread them out on the grass to dry. After supper, they sat for a while by the campfire. That night, they would sleep in the house again. They would never sleep beside a campfire. Ma and Pa talked about the folks in Wisconsin, and Ma wished she could send them a letter. But Independence was 40 miles away, and no letter could go until Pa made the long trip to the post office there. Back in the wait a minute. If Pa goes to Independence, he rides his horse 40 miles. It's going to take him a long time. How will the letter get from Kansas to Wisconsin? There are no cars, no trucks, There is, you ready for this? It's called the Pony Express. And the people that worked for the post office way back then had a horse and a saddlebag. They had the mail in the bag, and they rode their horse, and that's how they delivered the mail. Took a long time, but that's how they did it. Back in the big woods, so far away, Grandpa and Grandma and the aunts and uncles and cousins did not know where Pa and Ma and Laura and Mary and baby Carrie were. And sitting there by the campfire, no one knew what might have happened in the big woods. There was no way to find out. "Well, it's bedtime," Ma said. And this is what it looks like inside the house. See, there's no door, but Ma could hang a quilt on the door. The floor is just earth. And remember, Pa brought in tree stumps, and those worked to be chairs. Yep. "It's bedtime," Ma said. Baby Carrie was already asleep. Ma carried her into the house and undressed her, while Mary unbuttoned Laura's dress and petticoat waist down the back, and Pa hung a quilt over the door hole. The quilt would be better than no door. Then Pa went out to bring Pet and Patty close to the house. He called back swiftly, "Caroline, come out here. Look at the moon." Laura and Mary lay in their little bed on the ground inside the new home and watched the sky through the window hole to the east. The edge of the big bright moon glittered at the bottom of the window space, and Laura sat up. She looked at the great moon sailing silently higher in the clear sky. Its light made silvery lines in all the cracks on that side of the house. The light poured through the window hole and made a square of soft radiance on the floor. It was so bright that Laura saw Ma plainly when she lifted the quilt at the door and came in. Then Laura very quickly lay down before Ma saw her naughtily sitting up in the bed. She heard Pet and Patty whinnying softly to Pa. Then the faint thuds of their feet came into her ear from the floor. Pet and Patty and Pa were coming toward the house, and Laura heard Pa singing, "Sail on, silver moon, shed your radiance o'er the sky." His voice was like a part of the night and the moonlight and the stillness of the prairie. He came to the door singing, "By the pale silver light of the moon." Softly Ma said, "Hush, Charles, you'll wake the children." So Pa came in without a sound. Jack followed at his heels and lay down across the doorway. Now they were all inside the stout walls of their new home, and they were snug and safe. Drowsily, Laura heard a long wolf howl rising from far away on the prairie, but only a little shiver went up her backbone, and she fell asleep. Ooh. And the new chapter, my goodness, the wolf pack. We can get started. We've got a couple of minutes left. All in one day, Pa and Mr. Edwards built the stable for Pet and Patty. One day. Whew. They even put the roof on, working so late that Ma had to keep supper waiting for them. There was no stable door, but in the moonlight, Pa drove 2 stout posts well into the ground, one on either side of the doorway. He put Pet and Patty inside the stable, and then he laid small split logs, one above the other, across the door space. The posts held them, and they made a solid wall. "Now," said Pa, "let those wolves howl. I'll sleep tonight." In the morning, when he lifted the split logs from behind the posts, Laura was amazed. Beside Pet stood a long-legged, long-eared, wobbly little colt. When Laura ran toward it, gentle Pet laid back her ears and snapped her teeth at Laura. "Oh, keep back, Laura," Pa said sharply. He said to Pet, "Now, Pet, you know we won't hurt your little colt." Pet answered him with a soft whinny. She would let Pa stroke her colt, but she would not let Laura or Mary even come near it. I want to read more about this tomorrow. Oh my goodness. So, did you like chapter reading, boys and girls? Can you believe Pet has a colt? My goodness. Okay, until tomorrow. Bye.